Scene opens on Oliver working in his garage, right, on the bike that he's been putting some work into. He's working now with a renewed sense of purpose and urgency here, given that he now feels like things are underway. So uh, he has had to purchase some additional components, right, to finish this bike, and he is rather slapping it together, so to speak. But nonetheless, he is going to manage to complete this bike. So as he does so here at the beginning of the session, um, he has a bike. It's not very big. Um, it's, in terms of its strengths, well, I mean it's rather slapdash as far as that goes. But I will say that it is something that it's probably easily repaired, and I feel like it's going to need that a lot. In terms of like the look of the thing, it's not pretty at all. It's very cobbled together. And we know I mean, weaknesses about it. Well, one, it is certainly unreliable. Right? It's something where things can definitely go wrong with it easily. And I'm going to say it's also somewhat loud as well. Uh, in terms of kind of battle options added to it, um, get one battle option. Uh, I think he's going to add armor to this, right? So it has speed 0, handling 0, and armor 1. Right. So as he thinks about, as he is completing this um, machine, this bike, and preparing to leave, he thinks back to a conversation, right, that he had with his friend of sorts, Tum Tum, where she told him about a vision that she had. Right, and in this vision, she saw that he had to go. Specifically, he had to go to Mercerville, off to the south, uh, where we know it is there that he is hoping to acquire, planning to acquire, uh, some allies of some kind, right? So somebody, some fighters, somebody who can help them in the impending fight against Bill, as we know that Bill is working on some kind of tank, something like that, and is likely going to be using it to come here and to try to take over Fleece's Landing. And this is something where people of Fleece's Landing simply are not prepared for any kind of serious fight as far as this goes. So it is up to Oliver the Savvyhead in his vest and, rather worn down vintage clothing, partying like it's 1899, as they say. And he's going to hop on his bike and head out toward Mercerville. So that is his goal. His goal is to get to Mercerville. The one place that he knows about in Mercerville is Crimes. Crimes, he had a business card from there, which I believe he actually still has with him. He also is taking his revolver with him as well because, hey, you never know what might happen. Um, you got to be prepared, as they say. Right, so that is what he is doing right now. He is heading to Mercerville, so we are traveling right now. So the question is there some kind of move that is needed for this? I don't know that as long as he's just traveling, I don't know that's strictly necessary. Because I'm not seeing like any kind of road war going on or something like that. So, yeah. And I don't see that there's necessarily anything that has to happen on the way there. So I think, I mean, yeah, let's just have them go there. Right. Right. Well, them. No, it's not them. It's just him. Right. So Oliver by himself, right, is riding his bike across the wilderness, right, between Fleece's Landing and Mercerville. I'm gonna say it's not. It can't be outrageously far, right? Oh, it is pretty far. It's pretty far. All right. It's further than we thought. Um, but they are traveling there. I'm just gonna keep life simple and say that he makes it to Mercerville so we can move on with things. Right, so he is there in Mercerville and he is seeking out Krine's bar. So he's looking around, right, trying to find where this is. Uh, Now, in terms of a city, what Mercerville is like, let me look this up just so that I can remember so I'm not inconsistent. Right, right. So generally, right, this city, in terms of looking around, it is much cleaner than say Fleece's Landing is, right? It seems to be relatively well cared for. And that we know that this city is comfortable, but basically run by, uh, in effect, the mob, right? Right. So that is definitely the type of place that we are at right now, right? So we're here in Mercerville, and he's looking for crimes, right? So he seeks out Klein's barn, and it's someplace he can find it without any real problem, I suspect. Right, so it is, after all, a relatively well-known location. I don't think that it's going to be somewhere that's super hidden or anything like that. Right. So, so he finds Klein's bar. He walks in. Now, as he walks in, I don't know, because it was quite a distance. I'm guessing that it makes sense to me, right, that he would have left fairly early in the day to try to get there, try to get here to Crime's bar, to this establishment. Uh, and so he's getting there. I think it's probably early evening. So he's either going to have to travel at night or he's going to find some place to stay overnight here, um, here in Mercerville. But first, he has things to do. So I'm curious as to kind of how busy Crimes is at the moment. Moderately so. Right, so there are certainly like people around. This is a well, I guess, traveled, not well traveled, but it's a popular establishment, certainly in one of the nicer areas, as that you'll find amongst the wilderness here of the apocalypse world in which we find ourselves. Right, so he does manage to find Crine. Crine, we know, is an honest man. That is one of the things that we know about him. We know actually very little about Crine, except that this is where he is. He has a bar, he runs the bar, he is an honest man. Right? We know that he also craves contact, right? Intimate and or anonymous. So he very much likes making connections with people. So I'm suspecting he's very easy to find. Right? I suspect he's like the kind of owner. He doesn't stand back behind the bar. He is instead, right? He is out and he is schmoozing, right, with his clientele, as far as that goes. And so he's moving about. And as Oliver walks in, now, while Oliver, we know, is also a very honest person. So I think that Oliver's going to look around, see, like, is there somebody he thinks he should walk up to ask for help? Uh, but the most obvious thing is Crine himself. So Crine actually, I think, uh, approaches Oliver and says, welcome to my establishment. You look like you're not from around here. And being honest, Oliver does say, yeah, he's actually from up in Fleece's Landing, and he's here hoping to find someone that can help them, as they are now um, potentially under threat. Right? So at this point, right, I actually want to get a good read on Crine himself. So I'm going to read this person at 6 plus sharp. That makes it 8. 8 is a hit, but it's a weak one. Okay, so that allows me to ask one question at some point in this conversation. Okay. Also get to mark experience because that is one of my highlighted stats. Okay. So as I'm okay, so I need to ask, is Crine telling the truth? What is Crine really feeling? What does he intend to do? What does he wish I would do? And how could I get him to whatever? Right. So those are the questions that I'm allowed to ask here. Right. So I think it makes sense. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and ask a question now. So I want to know, how could I get Crine to connect me with some kind of mercenary group or something like that? And I think the honest answer here, well, okay, well, let's actually go ahead and I'm going to use Oracle for this one. I'm trying not to rely too much on these things. But what would Crine require for me to make this connection? And the answer is, right, seek social. So he's seeking connections as well, which you know is something that is kind of in his nature, right? So I think what he really wants from me is actually to get more information about me and Fleece's Landing. So I think like being the kind of uh, person that Oliver is, he's going to be fairly open about that. So what kind of thing does he want to know about? Seven would be enemies, specifically of a mystical variety. I don't know that I'm seeing mystical enemies here so much. The only mystical person we have here would be Tum Tum. But I think that this would bring to mind for Oliver Bill's gang. So I think that he's actually going to be quite honest and actually talk about the fact that he found, and he might even pull out the business card and said, right, here's the business card. And I have the feeling, right? Oliver says, I have the feeling that there was a conversation here about, right, this thing that Bill is doing, that this invention that Bill's gang is working on, uh, along with White, my old colleague, who stole some of my technology and left. Right? I have the feeling they were here and had this conversation. So I think he's sharing this information quite freely, and Crine very well might even know what he's talking about. But at this point, we really aren't in a position to read whether he does or he doesn't. But we do know is that Crine is willing to make connections for people. And now that he has learned some more information about us and what we are doing, and also about our situation, I think he is willing to help us make connections. So I think he does guide us over towards someone who is, in fact, let's say, the head of a mercenary group of some kind. Right, so I need to know more about this particular person that I'm being introduced to. So first thing, let's get them a name. Somewhere in here, I have a list of names. There it is. List of names. This is Preen. Preen as a name doesn't tell me much about. Like I could easily imagine Preen being anywhere right on the gender spectrum. So let's see. Um, two. Okay, so Preen I'm gonna say is a woman. Okay, so Preen is a she. Let me pull up my threat list. Some the notes. So Preen's gang. Okay. Now, what do we know about Preen's gang? Well, for one thing, they're a gang, and that by itself is fairly obvious, right? So that is called Preen's gang. Preen. What do we know about them? And now they are certainly going to be some type of brute. So are they a hunting pack, cyberites, enforcers, cult, mob, or family? Let me see. I'm just gonna roll d6 because there are six possibilities. Two would suggest cyberites. So they're trying to consume people's resources. Okay, that's fine. So there's cyberites. Okay. So I think that quite simply what we are going to do, we're actually going to just like offer them pay because the reality is that we can hire people, although the pay might be quite high. So I think rather than just offering them pay, we're going to have to try to convince them. Right. So I'm thinking that that's what we're talking about here. So would this be trying to seduce, manipulate, bluff, fast talk, or lie to someone? I don't know that that's it. I think that I'm just trying to convince them that they need to uh, that they should try to help us. So I think that here, as we're negotiating, the big thing that I think that we can negotiate is that uh, basically we don't want anything of Bill's. So really, anything that they can take from Bill's gang, we are perfectly happy for them to take. Uh, which then does raise the question of, okay, why wouldn't they just go take it? Why would they bother, right, just helping us at all? Right. So I think maybe I can offer my services as well. Right? After all, Savvyhead, I can offer them like I can, repair things, that kind of stuff. That's going to be something that's fairly easy, and that is one thing you can count on in an apocalypse world is that things break. Right? So I think that that would be kind of the offer that we can make here at this point. So I think that that is, I think that's the offer, and I think that uh, given Pree's goal, right, of consuming resources, right, with her gang, I think that it makes sense, right, that she would be willing, right, to work this way. Now, of course, Preen could also always, um, I was gonna say, what's the word? Could always, oh, betray. Yes, yes, that's the word. That's the word. Right? Could always turn against us. As far as that goes, that is certainly a possibility. That's one that we need to be ready for. But as it is, I think that Preen's gang is willing to give it a shot. How big is Preen's gang, I wonder? It's fairly small, actually quite small. Did not realize how small we're talking. And I'm going to actually say that that's actually true. That we actually did not know how small Preen's gang was, but it's really just like a small handful of people, right? So I think that's what we're talking about here. So, all right. So this is going to be, I'm going to say it's a small gang. Okay. So it's a small gang. There we are. But she's willing to work with us. All right. So I think that that is going to wrap up here, this quick scene. Not a whole lot of conflict in it at this point. Yeah, it's okay. Right, but I think that that is where we are at the moment. And in exchange for our services and also for, in effect, whatever loot they can get, she's willing to work with us. Wonderful. Right, so that rolls up, that wraps up session two, right, of the actual play here. Right, so that means now, as if you've been watching the series, as you know, I divide things up here between what happens in the game and then also planning the next session. So let's move into the second session plan. Right, so I'm just going to make a note here that we got Preen's gang. Nothing went terribly wrong there. Although to be fair, I didn't really do a lot of rolling. Because I wasn't manipulating anybody. I was just saying what we wanted, and they saw an opportunity to get resources. So sure. All right. So let's go ahead and move here. Now we're going to be moving into Act Two at this point in Session Three. Session Three. Now this is using. I've it linked in the description here. This is Katrina Ostrander's uh, specific version. It's is included in much longer, um, a much longer blog entry. It's like Beligan or somebody like that has it. Right. So just a reminder of that. So session three in this structure is in Act Two. It's the beginning of Act Two. actually being the rising action that occurs. And session 3 is the villain retaliates. So here's what we need to plan out. We need to have one of the villain's minions or plots make things worse. We need to have the PCs be forced to flee or abandon the location that we're at. We need the PCs to bargain with temptation. A shady trickster can help them for a price. And we also need character spotlight on one of the PC's strengths or motives on their strengths or motives or their side quest. So let's boil this all down. So I mean, I think it makes sense, right? We know that Bill has a gang. We know that that gang has some minions, right? So this is what I'm planning. So first, I'm just going to say Bill's gang, minions. I would say it makes sense for them to attack crimes, actually. That would force us to flee, right? Because they got word, right, of our coming here, Oliver coming here. I'm gonna say they might very well have followed him. I mean, after all, he has this really loud bike that he's on. It's not like you're gonna hide as you're riding across the desert, right? Another thing we need then, right? So there's going to be an attack that happens. So this is going to be a battle. So that could go all kinds of ways potentially. Then we need to bargain with temptation, right? So it's some shady trickster can help or a price. And we could possibly do now. Okay, the one thing though, like we have sessions 3, 4, 5, and 6, all say character spotlight on one of the PC's strengths, motives, or their side quest. And here's the thing: if I had multiple characters, that might make sense to do that. Like each session, have like, oh, here's something about you, here's something about you. But you know, we only have one character, so I think it might be overkill here, right? To have like the side quests come up all the time and have that be highlighted all the time. Right? I mean, after all, like it's all the spotlight's always on Oliver, right? So it doesn't really make sense, right, to do this character spotlight kind of idea. I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to toss that out. Right. So the big things that are going to happen in the next session then is one, we are going to have the Bill's minions attack at crimes, and this is going to make things worse. At the very least, it's going to force us to flee. It's very possible. We don't know what's going to happen with Green's gang. We don't know what's happening with the rest of the people in this place. This could be really, really bad. Uh, I mean, and it's possible we won't need other sessions. I mean, you can't rule it out. Can't rule it out. That's all I'm saying. Right. So you don't know. So that's one thing. And then this bargaining with temptation. So I need to come up with a shady trickster, right, that could help for a price. So I'm trying to think. I don't know that I can do too much with this, except I do want to come up with a name for the person, right? After all, I think it makes sense. I do have my list of names here. Let's just make this Ick. It's IK. So I need to determine what help and also what price. But that's something that honestly, I think that's going to have to be determined very situationally, because I don't know what the fallout is going to be from this battle that we're going to be going into. We know there's going to be some kind of battle going on. That's basically what we know. But we don't really know how it's going to go down. Uh, so there's all kinds of potential help that I might need, all kinds of prices I might be asked to pay. But I think that that's just going to have to depend on what happens here. All right, so I think that that's pretty good. These are just questions that I need to keep in mind as I play, I think is the best way for me to think about that one. Okay. I'm going to need to make some more notes about here, about exactly what happened this session, but I mean, you don't need to watch me write. You do enough of that anyway. So I'm going to wrap it here. Thank you for tuning in and keeping up with this series. Uh, and this is Prof E signing off.